I've been wanting to make this video for a while, kind of explaining where I've been, what I'm wanting this channel to be, what's next. And I kept getting into my head about how do I explain this, and do I have to, and maybe I won't, and maybe I just want to work on this a little longer. And it kept snowballing so that I was just never going to get around to it, which is why I am filming this morning at 8 a.m. before I can stop myself. And I'm just going to tell you a bit about the last couple of years. So to tell the story, actually, I need to go back in time a little bit. I promise this is all relevant. This isn't going to be some huge thing about my life story. But to contrast with 2018, my life is very different than when it was then. In 2018, I lived in a city and my life was amazing. In the sense that I had a great job, I had great friends that I went out with all the time. I lived in an exciting area where there were tons of things to do and events to go to and new things to explore, and I was having a great time. 2019, this started to change when my dad got sick. Towards the end of 2019, I moved to the suburbs in order to be with him and take care of him. I thought that this was going to be a very short-term jaunt, that I was going to go take care of my dad for maybe like a year, and then I was going to move back and go back to the life I had been living, because why wouldn't I? Now, why wouldn't I, obviously, is because we're talking about the end of 2019. In 2020, three things happened in fairly short order, like within a month of each other, that impacted the next several years. I think ultimately impacted the rest of my life. The first of which is COVID. The lockdowns in California started in March. It became clear quickly that what we were told was going to be a quick 2-week thing was not going to be. And it kept going and going. And as the economy originally started to crumble, I became unemployed, which is a whole other story I don't really want to get into, but I can talk a little bit about what leave looked like to take care of my dad prior to the decision for me to leave. But then obviously the third thing was my dad died. And I would never recommend any of those three to someone independently, right? I think those are all three very difficult experiences. I read once a scoring system for stressful events in your life, and it's like, do not exceed this number of points because that is a lot for a person to go through. And that year, my change level was up the wall, like off the charts. But now we're in 2020 and everything happens and also nothing happens. It is a time that in retrospect I refer to as the best worst year of my life. I am so grateful that I was able to take this time to process and grieve, because we don't have a good bereavement system here in the US. And I've lost people before, but it was amid school and work, and there was this pressure to just get back to it that I don't feel like I ever really got the chance to reflect and process through everything that had happened. So getting that time for my dad, which had been a lot to experience, and when he was sick, it was so go, go, go. Like, there was a 911 call to make, there was a hospitalization, there was all these things happening that I didn't have the time to pause and be like, how am I feeling? So getting the opportunity to do that was great. So I allowed myself a 1-year sabbatical, which I am immensely privileged to have been able to do. And in that time, I grieved and I reflected. And I started hiking a lot. I started sketching out a YouTube channel that I promptly abandoned. I read a ton. I became a foster parent. I got involved in local politics. I taught myself piano and Python and to make fresh pasta. I wrote. I rested. I got a dog. So, against all odds, it was kind of this banner year for me in this almost weird, ironic kind of way. And I also got to do a lot of thinking about what I wanted my life to look like. It became clear that I was not going to get to go back to my previous life. Because the city I lived in was not the city I had lived in anymore. And I saw it as an opportunity for rebirth. I think that partially a forced change, right, because of everything that had happened, and also because I think that when something as big as the death of a parent happens, that we have to change. It is a part, it's how I made it through, was changing and growing and letting it change me. Then the question became, what do those changes mean for the rest of my life? What are the things I value now? What are like my priorities? And I did a ton of exercises to kind of get me to think about things in those terms. And that was all really helpful. And 2021 came around, and somehow, I can't even explain how this happened really, but I just fell back into old patterns. I went back to the kind of job I had always worked in. I just reverted back to what I had always known. And time starts slipping away so quickly. And I know a lot of people experience this. And the thing that always gets me is that, 2016 was a big year for me. 2020 was also obviously a big year. And now we're at the end of 2024. And it does not make sense in my head that 2020 is directly between those 2 points, because 2016 felt ages away. That was forever ago. And now 2020 feels like yesterday, and also a decade ago, and also kind of a parallel timeline where that happened to someone else. And it's hard for me then to pin down where the time went. Okay, so now we're in 2024, and I'm having a conversation with someone, and I posed the question, do you think you might be depressed? And their response was basically, no, I don't think I'm depressed. I'm just having trouble getting out of bed in the morning and participating in activities that I normally love. And we continued to talk through that. But then I went home and I sat there and was like, wait. And so then I had to take a step back and think about, okay, if we are wanting to get ourselves on a different track, we want to jump timelines, what do I need from my life? What do I need to be doing in order to facilitate that? I read a bunch of books basically that were helpful into forming this ideal for myself in terms of thinking, okay, this is what is important to me now. Those included Do Nothing, which is basically about the importance of rest. We live in a very go, 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 go culture. Rest is very important, ability to think clearly into our creativity. So check that out. The next is The Power of Fun, which is basically built on the premise that we don't have a lot of fun as adults. We have a lot of fun as kids, a lot of spontaneous fun. And then as we get older, we actually kind of forget how. And a lot of the activities we participate in as quote unquote fun are actually built around leisure time. So we might read a book or play a video game, but those aren't real fun. They might be relaxing activities we enjoy, but it isn't fun in the way the author is defining it, so it's about getting back to that. I also read The Nature Fix, which is a fascinating book. It's all about the importance of getting into nature and its relationship with our physical and mental well-being. Go spend time in trees. The short version is, it's good for you, it's good for everyone, it's good for society. And then I also read Rewire Your Brain, which is basically about all the different chemicals your brain makes and forming new habits and neural pathways and how that all happens, which was helpful for me in terms of thinking about I'm having this idea for this life I want. How do I go about becoming? How do I step into that? Which was also great. So what's next? I want to spend more time dedicating to this channel. I think it is important for general knowledge, information. It is information that I want to share. And then I think it's also a part of my grieving process, is how I'm processing everything I went through. One thing I did realize, though, is when I first conceived of this channel, I thought it was going to be very hospice and grief 101. Here's what to expect. Here are some things that you can do. Might include like a personal anecdote here or there if it's relevant, but generally it wasn't going to be a channel about me. And the more I think about it, the more I think it kind of has to be. A part of grief ends up being so personal, and it ends up being that it doesn't make sense for me to talk about any of this if I'm not talking about myself and my personal perspective. So, if that is something that appeals to you, sounds interesting, go ahead and hit that follow button, and I don't know the whole bit, just do the thing, check in soon. I would love to talk more. If there's something specific that you have questions about, or you have an experience you want to share, please do comment below. I do plan on actually responding to those. And thank you.